Hey everyone, how's it going? It's your boy Skilled Fawn. Today we are going to attempt to get all the trophies in Bloodborne. For those unfamiliar with me, I'm going to briefly introduce myself. I'm mostly a challenge run content creator who does a lot of videos on the Soulsborne, Need for Speed, and Star Wars franchises. I was introduced to the Souls series at Dark Souls 3's release. Or Elden Ring's release, I played the Souls games on occasion. I started to become serious about content creation, posting videos and such after Elden Ring release. I really enjoyed the game, and since then I've done numerous challenge runs such as RL1+0, No Deaths, Frenzy Flame Perfume Bottles Only, and so on. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Bloodborne released on March 24th, 2015. This game was made by the developers of Dark Souls 1 and 2. Inspired by the mechanics and gameplay of its predecessors, From Software managed to enhance the formula and make an awesome and beloved game. Using aggression as the main playstyle, the player will need to dodge into attacks and not play passively. If damaged, the player can regain health using the rally mechanic. This was actually a pretty popular mechanic that was later integrated into Liza P. As we delve deeper into the trophies, I want to mention this will be different from your typical trophy hunt videos. I'll showcase and talk about how to get each one. We'll also do some other things. I'll showcase my journey through Bloodborne using the rarity, percentage of people that attain the trophy, and the date I acquired the trophy. This will be interesting to track to see how many people have gotten that specific one, when I got that trophy, and the route I took during my first few playthroughs. Starting off, the player will awaken in Yharnam and will be thrown straight into the game. Depending if the player dies to the beast at the start or gets to the first lamp location, they are able to enter the Hunter's Dream, aka the safe haven of this game. Here the player is able to choose weapons, buy items, and various other things. Going through the level, we eventually find Father Gascoigne, another hunter. For many players, I'm sure this was a difficult challenge, whether it was them getting used to the game's mechanics or the challenging and aggressive nature of Gascoigne. He has a few phases, but the most notable is the Beast phase. This is Gascoigne's last phase, and the player can use an item collected from a nearby NPC to bypass the first few getting to this point. There's also the option of just fighting him while he has his weapon and gun. Either way, we take Father Gascoigne and receive our first trophy. This was way back in 2018 when I was in high school and just got a PS4. For Bloodborne, I had only played DS3, so I was pretty new to the franchise, but was also extremely interested. The next trophy I acquired was a rather simple one. Acquiring a blood gem that imbues hunter weapons with special strength is rather easy. These can be found abundantly throughout the game, but the only thing is getting good stats on that one that you want. For instance, the gem could be plus 10 physical damage or rapid poison buildup. Each has their own ups and downs, but generally, the base damage boost, you can't go wrong with that. One of the coolest yet simplest fights is Cleric Beast. I'll never forget the first time fighting it, being terrified yet extremely fascinated. From the design of this boss to the screams it produces is pretty cool. For new players, this can definitely be a tough fight, as it can be hard to judge the attack windows. Playing Bloodborne again and going through a new playthrough, I have to say, part of me is excited just to fight this beast again. Another awesome fight is Bloodstar Beast. This boss is located in Old Yharnam and is found deep below in a church. Similar to Cleric Beast, it has these incredibly terrifying screams that it makes it just that much cooler in my opinion. Especially whenever it does this one lunge claw attack, it just looks super cool, even though it's super telegraphed and easy to read. The tough thing about this fight is that this boss inflicts slow poison. In the Dark Souls games, I would say it's easier to get rid of poison since there are various spells that remove it on top of consumables. In Bloodborne, at least to my knowledge, there are only the pellets that remove poison, so it can be really tough during a battle. Rapid poison is the equivalent to bleed in Elden Ring, but there are very few enemies that actually inflict it. Ultimately, we take the beast down. Once we take down Bloodstar Beast, we also get the first chalice, which lets the player explore and collect rewards from the chalice dungeons. We'll talk about the dungeons a lot more later in the video. Subsequently, I acquired the Rune Contact Trophy that is rewarded after collecting a Carol rune that endows the hunter with special strength. These runes are similar to rings the player equips in the various Souls games, providing bonuses when equipped. For instance, one could be receiving less physical damage or increasing stamina. There are a ton of runes, so make sure to explore around. When I collected the Rune Contact Trophy, I must have gotten an extremely precious Carol rune since I got this trophy at the exact same time. That is one weird yet cool thing I like about PlayStation's trophy system. As I'm more familiar with the Xbox achievements, it's nice to see some extra data being recorded, even if it's niche. Nearly 4 years later, I would return to Bloodborne to get the next trophy. This was because of a few reasons. First was that I actually sold my PS4. Second was that I didn't get my PS5 until recently. Third was that I was more interested in the Dark Souls 3 and Sekiro that recently released also. I never had anything against Bloodborne, but I just found DS3 and Sekiro to be a lot more fun at the time. Now 2024, going into 2025, Skilled Fawn has really grown to enjoy Bloodborne, but I don't want to spoil some of the later commentary in this video. Dark Beast Parl was the trophy I collected upon returning to the game. This is an interesting boss, but even more so getting here. The player must die to this specific enemy outside the church where a bunch of NPCs that the player rescues can be found. When defeated, the player can watch a cutscene and get transported to the Hypogean jail. Progressing through the various tough enemies, the player will find Dark Beast Parl. Parl can be tough since it inflicts bolt damage, and a lot of its attacks are quick and hard to read. One thing I found that helped was staying near its back legs and being extra aggressive. Taking down Dark Beast Parl, we claim another trophy. The battle against Vicar Amelia is an awesome one. Located in the Grand Cathedral, this massive beastly creature was once a revered member of the Healing Church. Her transformation into this grotesque beast is one of the most memorable and unsettling moments in the game. The fight itself is not that challenging, as Amelia's sheer size and heavy sweeping attacks can be fairly easy to dodge. I really just enjoy dishing out massive damage, which causes her to get staggered over and over, which also makes the fight super easy. Thankfully, the player can stagger her since she can actually heal herself when she drops below 50% health. Defeating Vicar Amelia, we earned another trophy. The Witch of Hemwick is one of the more bizarre encounters in Bloodborne. This boss takes place in Hemwick Charnel Lane, an unsettling area with windy paths, eerie graveyards, and various witches. The main boss witch doesn't directly attack you in the typical way. She actually relies on summoning illusions. At first, I did not realize there were two witches, and so the second kept reviving the first. The key to defeating them is focusing on the witches rather than the illusions, which requires observing the arena for the red glow. The fight is unique, setting it apart from many of the other boss fights in the game. Once I overcame the witches, I earned yet another trophy. The Shadow of Yharnam fight is one of the most intense in Bloodborne. In Forbidden Woods, the battle pits you against these 3 snake-like enemies, all of whom possess different attack patterns in a second phase. The real challenge is managing the battle's chaos. Fighting one enemy is tough enough, facing 3 is a recipe for disaster. Imagine in Godskin Duo's fight, they just decide to add another, making it a triplet, and also you couldn't sleep them. Well, that's how it feels at least at times in this fight. The Shadow of Yharnam tests the player's ability to dodge, manage multiple threats at once, exploit weaknesses in a fast-paced environment. I know that from personal experience, since in my first playthrough I died so many times and had to really learn the fight. It is evident in the timing from the previous trophy that it took some time and many attempts for me to beat them. Taking these 3 bosses down, I got another trophy. Rom is one of the most memorable and unique fights in Bloodborne. Rom is a great one, a cosmic entity of terrifying proportions. The setting for this battle is just as strange as the creature itself. The fight takes place in the Bergenworth ruins, but specifically in the center of the lake. Rom is surrounded by swarms of smaller spiders. The boss's attacks are slow but devastating, and the real challenge is dealing with the summoning of her spiders, which can really overwhelm the player if not managed carefully. Similar to the Shadow of Yharnam, I had some trouble with this boss in my first playthrough. It's really tough dealing with the various area of effect attacks on top of the minions, so it took a lot of trial and error. Once you bring down Rom, you not only earn another trophy, but also unlock more of the game's twisted eldritch lore. The One Reborn is a terrifying boss. This boss was hinted at early on in the game, with various notes talking about the moon turning red and a baby being born. This boss is located, and I'm gonna mess this up, Yargul Unseen Village. The One Reborn, even though it may be a baby, it is still massive, and it slowly moves around the arena and towards the player, with its many legs and disturbing sounds. The battle requires you to deal with the various witches that surround the boss and take advantage of windows where the One Reborn is vulnerable. It's a fight that is both disturbing but also poetic. I think this can be really tough for new players, as it is an enhanced version of the Tower Knights fight, so make sure you defeat the witches first and then go for the boss. I believe there is also an NPC summon nearby, so look for that if you are in need. Defeating it feels like taking down one of the most disturbing creatures in Bloodborne, and yet there are so many more that makes this boss pale in comparison. The Nightmare Lecture Building is one of the most intriguing locations in Bloodborne, and entering it unlocks another trophy. Once inside, you'll find a haunting environment with these slug-like scholars. Canehurst Castle is one of the most beautiful locations in Bloodborne, and gaining entry to the Lost Ruin Castle is a moment many players I'm sure will remember. Located in a secluded area, this area must be accessed via a small quest line. Long story short, the player must collect the Canehurst summons, and then travel to the area before the Witches of Hemwick. Once you've acquired the right items, you can enter the carriage waiting for the player. The atmosphere in Canehurst is oppressive and haunting, filled with unsettling sounds and eerie architecture. Inside, you'll find some disturbing enemies, and that is just an understatement. Most memorable were those enemies that constantly scrub the ground. Now, you might have noticed that I got this trophy at like 4:30 a.m., which is both hilarious but also dang, I don't know why I was up so early. I guess the Bloodborne grind was real. Anyways, I remembered entering the castle and seeing them and being absolutely terrified. Needless to say that I left that area for another day. The next trophy, well, I didn't unlock it for another bit. I mentioned that I got a PS5, and so that was the reason that I started playing Bloodborne again. Well, I did, but I was also playing with my brother at the time too. We would go through one boss at a time and then help the other. It was actually really fun, and I plan to go back to help him complete his first playthrough whenever we both have the time. One of the reasons I guess we did take a break was that both of us found other games more enjoyable to play, or we just had things in life get in the way. Either way, defeating MacLeod, host of the Nightmare, was the next trophy I acquired nearly a year later. The fight against him takes place in the Nightmare of Mensis, and it's a true test of the player's patience. MacLeod is rather a unique foe, as he runs away from the player for a majority of the encounter. You must chase him throughout the labyrinth halls of the building. His dialogue and taunts throughout the fight is both hilarious yet disturbing. Once the player finally catches up to him and defeats him, they earn another trophy. Blood gems are a great part of Bloodborne's progression system, and we briefly mentioned it near the beginning, offering a way to enhance your weapons with unique stat boosts, besides upgrading the weapons with materials. The Blood Gem Master Trophy is awarded when you obtain an extremely rare and valuable blood gem. These gems can be found in various places throughout the game, but the truly rare ones are hidden away in Chalice dungeons. Murgo's Wet Nurse is a tragic boss fight. The fight takes place at the top of the Nightmare of Mensis, where the Wet Nurse is guarding the infant, whose cries can be heard throughout the fight. The Wet Nurse itself is an eerie and unsettling fight. Its multiple arms and rapid slashes of those arms add to the tension of the encounter. The boss fight is visually interesting, but only the second phase where the clones come in is where the things get difficult. Defeating the Wet Nurse, the player can use the toy box item collected at the beginning of the game now, and the baby will actually giggle and almost be happy for a moment. The interesting thing though is you actually can't see the baby in the carriage, it's just like invisible, which is weird. The first time I fought this boss, I didn't realize that I could use the item, and so the second time I did, and I was both sad yet happy. Defeating the nurse also opens up the path to the game's ending and gives us another trophy. Honoring Wishes is one of the endgame trophies you'll earn in Bloodborne, and it represents the end of your journey in a rather profound way. This trophy is unlocked by choosing to give in to the Moon Presence influence. To unlock this, you must have already defeated Murgo's Wet Nurse and then survived an encounter with Gurman. This trophy symbolizes the game's themes of cosmic Lovecraftian horror. The Chalice of Ailing Lorien is another key item that takes the player into Chalice dungeons. I mentioned near the beginning that I would talk about Chalice dungeons, and what better time than now? There are 3 main chalices which the player can get trophies for. After completing one of the chalices, the second layer or an enhanced first layer chalice will be given. Long story short, at the end of each chalice, the player will get another chalice, and thus continue through again. There's one chalice that is unique, and I will talk about that one more specifically later. In the dungeons, the player can find various enemies, loot drops, and bosses. These can be preset or randomly generated. The Ailing Lorien Chalice opens up the sand-covered land that has been lost to time. Within the dungeon, players will encounter a range of nightmarish beasts and increasingly difficult challenges. Now you might be asking yourself, Skilled Fawn, how did you get that chalice? Well, let's get into that. Amygdala is how the player gets the Chalice of Ailing Lorien and also the next trophy. The chalice and defeating the Amygdala are tied together, similarly to how Blood-Starved Beast gave us the first chalice. This boss is truly an unsettling creature, and its fight is one of the most iconic in Bloodborne. Amygdala is a great one of the cosmic entities that has shaped the nightmarish world of Yharnam. Located in the Nightmare Frontier, Amygdala itself is a massive creature with an unsettling shape. The fight takes place in a medium-sized open arena, and the challenge lies in dodging its numerous attacks while trying to land hits on its vulnerable areas. This is tough since his weak point is its head, and getting the range to hit the head can just be damn tough at times. I really enjoy its last phase where it just rips its own arms out to then just use them for extended range. Both super smart but also super terrifying. Defeating Amygdala not only rewards you with this trophy, but also gives the player more insight. Entering the realm of the choir is one of the most intriguing aspects of Bloodborne's world building. To access this area, the player will need a key and enter the Upper Cathedral Ward. Here you will face a variety of enemies, including celestial emissaries, which further reinforce the theme of humanity's blind pursuit of forbidden knowledge. Since we are talking about celestial emissaries, the next trophy I acquired was defeating them. Located in the Upper Cathedral Ward, this fight is one of the more laughable fights in Bloodborne, but is more so about the lore and the implications rather than the fight itself. Similar to in Demon Souls' King Allant in its true form. Embriatis, Daughter of the Cosmos, is one of Bloodborne's most iconic and unsettling bosses, and also it just has the coolest name. Located in the Upper Cathedral Ward, Embriatis is a grotesque cosmic entity that is terrifying in a beautiful way. Having multiple eyes and long arms, this is one unique looking boss. Interesting story is that on my first time fighting her, I got destroyed, but then the second time I stun locked her into oblivion, thus making the fight super easy. Though it was rather easy the first time, it was really cool to see her various attacks. The Chalice of Eyes is another one of the chalices the player can collect, and this specific chalice is tied to defeating Embriatis. This particular chalice seals the home of the Cosmic Kin, aka the Great Ones who exist beyond the boundaries of human comprehension. The Weapon Master trophy is a highly satisfying one to unlock, necessary for the late game and DLC bosses. It requires the player to take their weaponry to the highest level possible. Weapons can be upgraded using blood echoes and materials that are often found throughout the game, world, or in chalice dungeons. Reaching the highest level of any weapon significantly increases its damage and stat scaling. While there is a wide range of weapons in the game, this trophy signifies that you've mastered one of them, bringing you closer to becoming the ultimate hunter in Bloodborne. Subsequently, I defeated Yharnam, Blood Queen of the Old Labyrinth, who received the next trophy. This is a very tedious and time-heavy boss. Not that she is necessarily easy or difficult, but rather the journey to get to her. Let me explain. I talked about the chalices and gave a brief explanation on them. Well, the first chalice, Chalice of Thumaru, player needs to complete. Afterwards, they will receive the Root Chalice, and then the second level chalice. The Root Chalices are basically randomly generated versions of that level, so we bypass them for the most part. Though I did need to go through one of them for more ritual materials. Essentially, I think there are like 5 total chalices that the player will need to complete, each with their own material needed to be activated. At the very end of this long ordeal, the player will be able to fight Yharnam, Blood Queen of the Old Labyrinth. It was a fun fight, and it was really cool that I was able to have some NPC helpers. Ultimately, she didn't stand a chance. We take her down, receiving one of the many super rare Bloodborne trophies. Martyr Ligarius is one of the most memorable encounters in Bloodborne and is located at the top of Cainhurst Castle. The fight itself is a unique experience as Ligarius wields a powerful weapon and has these long-range magic attacks that can devastate the player. This caught me massively off guard the first few attempts, and I had to try to figure out a good strategy. The challenge in this fight lies in his ability to dish out both powerful close range and range spells. I found that pairing Ligarius over and over again worked really well. This trophy signifies a key victory over one of Bloodborne's most deadly bosses. Unlocking the Source of the Dream trophy marks a critical turning point in Bloodborne's story as you uncover the origins of the hunter's dream itself. This hidden area can be accessed through a series of hidden steps in the game's world and leads you to an old workshop, the place where everything started. Afterwards, I got the Childhood's Beginning trophy. It signifies the true end of the journey and the transition into something beyond humanity. After defeating the final bosses and reaching the endgame, you have the option to make an incredibly important choice, and in doing so, you will become an infant Great One. This is done by finding and consuming various umbilical cords around Yharnam. There are 4, I believe, in total, but the player needs to only consume 3, since each is 1/3. This is a haunting and philosophical ending, as it suggests that humanity is not only intertwined with the cosmos, but will eventually transcend into it. This ending can be unsettling, but also truly makes the player think of what would come after this. The Hunter's Essence trophy is a prestigious trophy in Bloodborne requiring the player to acquire every single weapon in the game. Bloodborne features a wide array of weapons, so the player must explore the world, defeat bosses, and complete various challenges to acquire all of them. This trophy is a testament to the player's thorough exploration of the world of Yharnam and your mastery of its weapons. Hunter's Craft is another trophy that demands exploration and a bit of dedication. In Bloodborne, special hunter tools are powerful items that provide unique abilities, offering players new ways to approach combat and solve problems. Some of these tools are hidden in challenging locations or are given by certain NPCs. Acquiring all of them showcases the player's commitment to mastering all the aspects of the game. The Yharnam Sunrise Trophy signifies the completion of the last endings of the game. To earn this, players must successfully navigate the horrors of Yharnam once again, deal with the Great Ones, and make it through the many trials set before them, ultimately choosing to submit to Gurman, thus leaving the nightmare behind. Completing this trophy brings a sense of intrigue as you wonder whether you are truly freed from the nightmare, or was this reality and Gurman freed you from the quote-unquote nightmare. Since we acquired the Yharnam Sunrise Trophy, we also received the final trophy, which is Platinum. This is truly the ultimate trophy in Bloodborne, awarded to those who have obtained every other trophy in the game. Earning this trophy is a massive accomplishment and represents a deep understanding of the game's mechanics and challenges. This marks the end of the main game's journey, but now we have another beast to tackle, the DLC. Next up, we have Ludwig the Holy Blade. This fight is legendary, one of the best and most memorable encounters in Bloodborne. Ludwig, once a noble and honorable hunter, has transformed into this grotesque, terrifying beast. What makes this fight unique is that it has two distinct phases, with the second phase introducing one of the most beautiful yet terrifying boss designs in the game. His gigantic moonlight greatsword is not only intimidating, but also gives off that classic Soulsborne feeling of epic scale. When I fought Ludwig, I was struck by how much of the atmosphere had shifted from the first phase to the second, creating the setting for one of the most epic fights in the game. Even though this fight was epic as heck, it did take me more times than I cared to admit. Ultimately, we defeat Ludwig, feeling nothing can stop us now. The next trophy I unlocked was for the Living Failures. This was an awesome and interesting experience. I really enjoyed getting up to this boss, as the clock tower is really cool to progress through. The interesting part was that out of all the DLC bosses, this gave me most or near the most trouble. I basically wasn't able to dish out enough damage in time, and the fight would be super long. It wasn't until I realized I could parry these fools that this fight became ridiculously easy. These bosses are one of the most tragic encounters in the game, representing the failed attempts to become great ones. Next, we face one of the most iconic characters in the DLC, Lady Maria. Her fight was one of the most cinematic in the game and was just as epic. Funnily enough though, I had an easier time with her compared to the Living Failures. I was just able to get stagger after stagger on her, making the fight super easy. This is one fight I'm really excited to go through again, that I can hopefully experience more and learn her attack patterns better. The Orphan of Kos, what a fight. This was the trophy I was most looking forward to during my DLC playthrough, as it has a reputation. The Orphan, the moment the fight begins, you can feel the intensity looming overhead. The boss is not only one of the most challenging in this game, but also in the whole Soul series. Fighting it was an absolute test of patience, timing, and strategy. I had to make sure I really didn't overextend myself and opted to play aggressively, yet also somewhat cautiously. The Orphan's erratic, unpredictable movements and overwhelming atmosphere made this battle a true spectacle, earning its place among the best boss fights I've ever experienced. Now we come to Lawrence, the First Vicar. This is an enhanced cleric beast fight. Lawrence was one of the original members of the Healing Church. His transformation into this grotesque beast is both tragic and horrifying. The arena is set in a cathedral, which can actually be accessed very early on in the DLC. The player won't be able to fight him until they have collected all the necessary items. The most challenging part of this fight is dealing with him once he goes into his second phase. Here he crawls on the ground and has the most insane area of effect attacks. But once you get a rhythm down, you can find openings to deal damage. Defeating Lawrence felt like a significant achievement, as it was one of the toughest challenges in the DLC. The final trophy I acquired in the DLC and Bloodborne as a whole was the Old Hunter's Essence, which requires the player to acquire all the Old Hunter weaponry. These weapons are some of the coolest and most unique in the game. Some of these weapons are hidden in difficult to reach areas, while others require defeating some of the toughest enemies in the game. Reikio, for instance, was extremely difficult. Acquired at the bottom of this well, the player must first fight this large enemy. Simple enough when BAM! Another one comes to ruin your day. I died a bunch of times to these guys, and instead of making things harder, we are going to do some cheesing. Using the consumable that makes enemies friendly after being hit is extremely valuable here. The reward of collecting all of them was definitely worth the grind, and it felt great to have all the powerful tools at my disposal. With that, this has been Bloodborne all trophies completed. From the main game to the Old Hunters DLC, we completed it all. It's been an incredibly fun yet tough experience. Bloodborne pushes you to your limits, testing your combat skills, patience, and perseverance. Some of those bosses, like the Orphan of Kos, were brutal, but defeating them felt so rewarding. The game's challenging, but that's part of what makes it so special, like every other Souls game. Every trophy, every victory feels earned. There are definitely some frustrating moments. The sense of accomplishment when I earned that platinum was absolutely worth it. If you're thinking about tackling this hunt, be prepared for a tough ride, but one that's totally worth it. Bloodborne is a journey like no other, and I'm glad I stuck with it. Make sure to smash the like button, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Try to do something kind for someone today, whether it's a small or large gesture. This is your boy Skilled Fawn, and I'm out.